Some crimes just, they cut right through everything. The sheer brutality leaves you, well, speechless.
Absolutely.
And that's really what happened back in 2013 with a case so horrific, the prosecutor actually called it the biggest atrocity committed against women.
A very strong statement, and sadly, quite fitting for this case.
So today we're taking a deep dive into the Preeti Rathi acid attack. It happened at Bandra Station. We really want to understand the events, the investigation, and what happened legally afterwards.
Yeah, and for this, we've looked closely at a detailed YouTube transcript. It lays out the timeline, the investigation's twists and turns, and, the final legal outcomes. Our aim is to really pull out the key understanding from that source material.
Okay, let's set the scene. It's May 1st, 2013. We have Preeti Rathi, a bright 23-year-old, just graduated nursing school in Delhi.
Right.
And she's on her way to Mumbai for this incredible opportunity joining the Indian Navy as a nursing officer, a second lieutenant at INS Mumbai in Colaba.
That's a huge deal. Imagine the pride, the excitement for her and her family.
Totally. And the transcript mentioned she was the first in her family to actually leave Delhi for something like this. Such a big achievement.
Yeah, it really highlights the significance. And she wasn't alone on this journey. Her family was right there with her on the Garib Rath Express.
Okay, who was with her?
Her father, Amar Singh Rathi, her uncle, Vinod Kumar Dahiya, and her aunt, Sunita Dahiya. They were all traveling together, to support her as she started this new chapter.
Right. Now, the Garib Rath Express, those trains can get incredibly crowded.
Oh, definitely. Very packed.
And during that journey, Preeti's family noticed something. Well, unsettling. There was this young man on the train.
Mm-hmm.
He kept his face covered with a cloth, wore a cap, and they saw him watching Preeti, quite intently, apparently, throughout the trip.
Yeah, that detail looking back. It just sends a chill down your spine, doesn't it? It adds this layer of foreboding.
Absolutely. So they arrive at Bandra Terminus the next morning, May 2nd, 2013, around 8:05 a.m. You can picture the scene, right? A major Mumbai station at that hour.
Yeah.
Pure chaos.
Total hustle and bustle. Passengers getting off, finding their way.
And Preeti, maybe a bit tired from the trip, was just lagging slightly behind her father, uncle, and aunt as they were getting off the train. Just a few steps.
And in that moment, that brief separation, the same young man they'd seen on the train, face still covered, he suddenly approaches her.
Right there on the platform?
Yes. And then the unthinkable happens. He pulls out a container and throws acid directly onto her face.
Oh, God. It's just, you can only try to imagine the pain, the sheer terror. The transcript describes her screaming, the immediate shock and reaction from her family, other passengers, witnessing this horrific act.
It was just pure, calculated brutality. And so tragically, as her father and uncle rushed to help her, instinctively,
of course,
some of that acid splashed onto their hands as well, burning them.
Yeah.
But even in their own pain, their focus was completely on Preeti, trying to get her help immediately.
So they rush her to the station master's office first, right? Then on to Baba Hospital.
Correct. But her injuries were catastrophic, so severe that Baba wasn't equipped, leading to a transfer to Guru Nanak Hospital.
And you mentioned critically, Guru Nanak didn't have a specialized burn unit.
Exactly. Which just highlights the challenge in getting the right immediate care for such devastating burns. She was then moved again, finally, to Messina Hospital.
Which was better equipped.
Yes, better equipped to handle severe burn cases.
Okay. Now, amidst all this chaos and horror, a bystander, a man named Sameer Sheikh, he actually tried to help.
He did. He tried to figure out what happened, and incredibly, he and his friends, Salim and Salman, actually chased after the attacker for a bit.
Wow.
And in a terrible twist, Sameer also got some acid on his hands during that pursuit. These three men, Sameer, Salim, and Salman, became really crucial eyewitnesses later on.
I bet. They're quick thinking.
Yeah, absolutely. Sameer's account to the police right after the attack was vital. The police arrived. They did what's called a spot panchnama, basically documenting the scene based on his initial statement and started collecting any evidence they could find.
And Preeti's condition. The transcript makes it clear how severe it was. She lost her voice.
Yes, her face was terribly burned, serious injuries to her neck as well. It meant she couldn't physically give a statement to the police initially.
But she tried to communicate.
She did. Even in that unimaginable pain, she tried to write things down. It really speaks to her strength, her will.
Incredible resilience. Meanwhile, outside the hospital, the public reaction must have been huge.
Oh, it was immediate and intense. Widespread protests, people demanding the attacker be caught, punished. The pressure on the Mumbai police was enormous.
But they were struggling to find leads at first.
They were. They managed to create a sketch based on the eyewitness descriptions, Sameer and the others presumably, but it didn't immediately point to anyone specific.
Then, a couple of days later, May 4th, a phone call comes in. Seemed like a potential break.
Yes, a B.Tech student named Pawan Kumar, who actually knew Preeti from Delhi, called her sister, Tanu.
Okay. Why did he call?
Just asking how Preeti was doing, checking on her condition. Tanu told her father, who then passed this information to the police.
And this is where things take a really, well, a wrong turn.
A very wrong turn. The police showed Preeti the sketch they had. Despite her condition, they asked if she recognized the person.
And she responded?
She wrote down 3 names, Satyam, Ankur, and this caller, Pawan Kumar.
Ah, so because Pawan had called and his name was on her list.
Exactly. The police zeroed in on him. Their thinking might have been, he's calling to see if the attack worked, if she survived. It cast suspicion on him.
Right, that connection, however tenuous.
And so, based on that, they arrested Pawan Kumar on May 9th, 2013.
Wow. And the public demanding action probably saw this as progress, right? A suspect caught.
Likely, yes. But while this was happening, Preeti's fight for life was getting harder. Despite surgeries at Messina Hospital, her condition kept worsening.
So they moved her again?
Yes, to Bombay Hospital for care from top specialists. She ended up on ventilator support.
It sounds like they were doing everything possible.
They were, but tragically. On June 1st, 2013, Preeti Rathi died. Cardiac arrest due to her injuries.
Oh no, after everything she went through.
It sent this huge wave of grief and understandably renewed anger across the country. The calls for justice became even louder.
Her poor family. How did they react?
Utterly heartbroken, devastated. They demanded a CBI investigation, the Central Bureau of Investigation. They felt the initial investigation wasn't right.
Understandable.
They were so distraught, they initially refused to perform her last rites. It just shows their desperation for answers, for accountability.
Did they get the CBI inquiry?
The government eventually assured them of one, yes. And her funeral was then held with state honors.
But then comes this massive revelation, the one that completely undermines the initial arrest.
Exactly. Preeti's father, Amar Singh Rathi, didn't stop. He did his own digging, used his own sources.
And he found out.
He discovered that Pawan Kumar, the man arrested, was actually in Rohtak, Haryana, on May 2nd, the day of the attack. Miles away.
He had an alibi the whole time.
A solid alibi, which the police later confirmed themselves by checking Pawan's mobile phone location records.
So the police arrested an innocent man based on what? A sketch identification from someone critically injured and a phone call.
It appears so. A major, major failure in that initial investigation.
Just incredible. So what did Preeti's father do then?
He filed a writ petition demanding the investigation be handed over to the state's Criminal Investigation Department, the CID of Mumbai.
And the court agreed?
Yes. Thankfully, the court granted his request. His determination in the midst of such grief is just remarkable.
Truly. So the CID Mumbai takes over. What's their approach?
They went back to basics, really. Started looking into Preeti's life back in her neighborhood in Delhi, questioning relatives, friends, acquaintances.
And that's when the other name Preeti wrote down comes back into focus.
Yeah,
Gone.
Exactly. Ankush Pawar. Information started surfacing about him. He was a neighbor in Delhi.
Okay.
And apparently he was infatuated with Preeti, had a proposed marriage even.
And she rejected him.
Yes, she turned him down. And disturbingly, there were reports that he'd actually threatened her after the rejection.
Okay, so a potential motive starts to emerge there.
Definitely. When the CID investigators questioned Ankur, they found his answers inconsistent, evasive.
And something else caught their attention.
Yes. They noticed visible burn marks on his hands, injuries that looked very much like they could have come from handling acid.
That's pretty damning.
It immediately made him their prime suspect. So they brought Ankur to Mumbai for proper interrogation. This was January 17th, 2014.
And did he talk?
He did. Under questioning, Ankur Pawar confessed. He admitted to carrying out the acid attack on Preeti.
He confessed. Why? What was his reasoning?
It was this toxic mix, really. Resentment over her rejecting him, jealousy over her success getting into the Navy while he was unemployed, and apparently he felt taunted by his own family comparing his lack of success to her achievements.
So he saw her success as some kind of personal insult.
It seems that way. He couldn't handle her moving forward, achieving her dreams, especially after rejecting him.
And the planning. Was it impulsive or premeditated?
Oh, it was chillingly premeditated.
Yeah.
He admitted traveling on the same train as Preeti and her family from Delhi.
He was on the Garib Roth with them.
Yes. He even confessed he tried to attack her inside the train compartment.
What stopped him?
He said it was too crowded, and also her family was right there, vigilant. He didn't get an opportunity, so he waited.
Waited until she got off the train at Bandra.
Exactly. He waited for that moment when she was briefly separated from them on the platform.
Unbelievable calculation. How did the CID back up this confession?
They started gathering corroborating evidence. They managed to trace where he bought the acid.
They found the shop.
Yes, a shopkeeper named Mukesh Pargav. Ankur had apparently gone there pretending he needed acid for a battery business he called Ankur Batteries.
Well, fake business.
Seems so. He even asked for a sample initially, and the shopkeeper gave him about 2 liters of acid in a Horlicks container.
A Horlicks container, like the drink powder jar.
Exactly. That detail becomes important.
Okay, what other evidence did they find?
Phone records were crucial. They placed Ankur at Nizamuddin Station in Delhi on May 1st, just before the train journey.
Right.
And then, crucially, pinged his phone near Bandra terminus on the morning of May 2nd, right around the time of the attack.
So, opportunity confirmed.
Yes. The pieces were really falling into place.
Yeah.
And then came the identification parade.
With the witnesses from the station, Sameer and his friends.
Yes. Sameer Sheikh, Salim Sheikh, Salman Sheikh, plus another witness, Pawan Malviya. All 4 of them positively identified Ankur Pawar as the attacker they saw.
That's powerful.
And significantly, Sameer Sheikh also identified the Horlicks container that police had recovered from the crime scene. He said it was the same one he saw in Ankur's hand during the attack and the chase.
Wow, that connects the acid purchase directly to the attack scene via the witness.
Precisely. And another witness also confirmed seeing Ankur on the Garib Roth Express that night.
So a really solid case built by the CID. What happened next, legally?
With all this evidence, a charge sheet was filed against Ankur Pawar. He was the main accused. The trial began at the Special City Civil and Sessions Court in Greater Mumbai.
And Ankur's behavior in court. The transcript mentions something quite disturbing.
Yeah, it's noted he often seemed almost nonchalant, smiling, sometimes even making victory signs.
Victory signs.
Right.
While on trial for murder.
It suggests a complete lack of remorse, a really troubling psychological state.
Absolutely chilling. How did the trial proceed?
The prosecution presented their case, calling 37 witnesses in total. This included, of course, Sameer, Salim, Salman, and the other key eyewitnesses who identified Ankur.
And the verdict?
The special court found Ankur Pawar guilty. Guilty under Indian Penal Code Section 302, which is murder, and Section 326B, for voluntarily throwing acid causing grievous harm.
And the sentence?
He was sentenced to death, plus a fine of 5,000 euro. This was a landmark judgment at the time.
Why landmark?
It was reported as the first time in India that the death sentence had been handed down specifically for an acid attack murder case under these sections.
Right. A very strong message.
Definitely. The special public prosecutor really emphasized the severity, calling it the biggest atrocity committed against any woman.
And the judge. There was a comment from the judge that was particularly heartbreaking.
Yes, very poignant. The judge observed during the verdict that Preeti's injuries, the disfigurement to her face, were so severe, so terrifying, that she might have actually died from the shock of seeing her own reflection.
Oh my God. It paints such a horrific picture of what she endured.
It truly does. It underscores the absolute horror of this kind of violence.
And Ankur's reaction to the death sentence.
Reportedly, still no remorse,
Yeah.
still smiling, even after hearing he was sentenced to death.
It's just incomprehensible. For Preeti's family, seeing that, it must have been agony.
Unimaginable agony. But the legal story didn't quite end there.
Right. There are appeals. Did he appeal?
Yes, Ankur appealed the death sentence to the Mumbai High Court.
And what was the outcome of the appeal?
After a lengthy hearing process in June 2019, the Bombay High Court decided to commute the sentence.
Commute it? To what?
From death sentence down to life imprisonment.
Life imprisonment instead of death. How would the family have felt about that?
We can only imagine it would have been incredibly difficult news for them. The High Court would have weighed various legal factors and precedents, of course.
Legally complex.
But, when you consider the sheer brutality, the suffering Preeti went through, the suffering her family endured, you can understand the feeling that perhaps even the death penalty might not feel like enough justice.
Yeah. It leaves you feeling just a profound sense of shock and sadness, really, going through this deep dive.
It does. It's a stark reminder of the kind of extreme violence people are capable of. We've seen the initial investigation go wrong. the incredible fight by Preeti's father,
His perseverance was amazing.
and then the eventual, although complex, path to a legal conclusion.
And for us, for the listener, this case really pushes us to think about the wider issues, doesn't it?
It really does. How do we respond to crimes like acid attacks? What does this case tell us about achieving justice, about accountability in our systems? These are tough questions.
Definitely. And ultimately, whatever the final legal sentence, the devastating, irreversible impact on Preeti Rathi and her family, that remains. It's a tragic testament to the consequences of this kind of violence.
Absolutely. It forces us to keep thinking about what more needs to be done. Prevention, stronger measures, but also, crucially, long-term support for survivors and their families.
A difficult story, but an important one to understand. Thanks for walking us through this deep dive.
Thank you.